What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host Dave Martin. Swagger Dave, what's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. It's hot out here.
Dog days of summer, but you know what never stops? The content never stops because
Hell no.
we're covering 5 albums today, a couple of TV shows, and you made it to a movie last week. And man, I'm excited for the movies next week. We got a
Oh
Jordan
yeah.
Peele movie coming out. You kidding me?
We made it.
We made it. The long wait is over. So if you enjoy listening to our reviews on these things or things coming up, hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgia pod. And Dave, feels a bit like deja vu because we're back in the K-pop world to start this week, talking about ITZY with Checkmate, their first release since their full-length debut album, Crazy in Love, from last year. And Checkmate, just like a lot of these K-pop releases, a nice short 7-song album, and I really appreciate these mini albums. Shout out Kanye West. Uh, ITZY though, I think in listening to them, and compared to some of the other groups and artists we've been talking about from K-pop recently, this felt like a bit of a return to like the traditional K-pop sound in my book, and
Mm.
it was welcome in some ways, but also kind of left me feeling like, well, I don't know how exciting this is compared to some of the other stuff. How did you feel after listening to Checkmate?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Uh, you have a lot of the things you come to expect from these K-pop releases, and the production side of things is largely within those expectations as well. So, yeah, I don't know if I was necessarily wowed or super impressed with anything, but I still didn't mind a good amount of these songs. I think, like you said, a big part of that is the brevity of many of these K-pop mini albums, EPs, whatever you call them. And yeah, I think just the production seemed to really match what the performers of ITZY, these 5 women, their strengths seem to really match this production. And I think if you look at the lead single on this, the one with the music video, Sneakers,
Hmm.
that's your banger off this
Oh yeah,
release. And I actually like really enjoyed the verses on that
hmm
because the members really go back and forth between singing part of the verse, hip hop part of the verse, really back and forth. I think it really keeps you on your toes, keeps the energy high alongside this, engaging production as it is. And I actually think the chorus itself, that hook, the put your sneakers on part, I actually think that's one of the weaker parts of the song. But like all those verses and especially that pre-chorus where that singing
yeah,
is like really great. I think just there's so much catchy stuff about that song, and the chorus is almost besides the point.
yeah. No, I agree. Sneakers was a clear standout. And that pre-chorus part you're talking about, I love when they're like, "Or you can call me weird." Like it just sounds so fucking good. And yeah, I it's interesting because the song starts off with this almost like like Middle Eastern influenced
Mm,
sound to it, and then it kind of goes like more traditional, but then it always kind of goes back to it. So it was interesting. Definitely kept you on your toes. And yeah, I agree with you as well. I think the chorus is the weaker part of it, but I don't think that's the only song I really liked on here.
mm,
Domino was a song I really liked near the end. It's the last. So there's actually only 6 songs because they have the all English version of Sneaker to kind of close
right.
this out. So Domino is like the closing song in a way as well. But it just is like it's definitely pure K-pop, but it just sounds so like glamorous and like
Yeah.
it feels
Softer.
very summery. Yeah, which I really
Mhm.
appreciated, and they really like ride on the production really well. So I think those are probably my 2 standouts from this. Were there any others that you liked?
There were, yeah. I think with Domino, the summary nature of it kind of brings back the thoughts we just had last week with their JYP label mate Nyan, which was definitely
Yeah,
a lighter, summery vibe throughout the course of her solo debut there.
good call.
Yeah, I enjoyed 365 a lot as well for the hip hop on that. Also,
Mm,
heavy electronic production there. And then what I want, I think, is actually becoming a bit of a grower for me because that's another one where it's like kind of like a repetitive, almost like playful hook. I know what I want. Like it's repetitive, but it's actually still like lyrical and like saying a message and stuff. And like it was becoming catchy for me. So I think that's one I'll actually end up going back to. When I first heard it, I was like, I don't know about this one, but yeah, I think overall I enjoyed this release and definitely interested in ITZY. I noticed that all of their like lead singles throughout their run, and they only debuted in early 2019. All of their singles have been English,
Hmm,
so they are clearly focused on a
they're going
global
for it.
global appeal here. So definitely looking forward to seeing what's next from them and what else JYP is cooking. But yeah, I mean, this has really been the K-pop summer for women. It feels
Yeah.
like with Nyan and not too long ago the a Twice release, and now we
Yep.
have ITZY and aespa, and we know Blackpink's coming in like a month
Oh man.
and Girls' Generation's coming back from hiatus. It's a huge summer for the K-pop ladies for sure.
Man, that Blackpink album, is just gonna break every
Don't
record
get me started.
possible. We're excited to talk about that, but we'll be adding a song from ITZY to our Nostalgia Best of 2022 on Spotify, so hit the follow on that. Let's stay with K-pop though, but go to a solo artist who's
Mm.
releasing his first solo work. That's J-Hope from BTS. BTS on hiatus right now, not broken up. They're on a hiatus supposedly. Um, and J Hope dropped Jack in the Box. Not what I expected at all. And in doing a little bit of like research about this, it seems like that was intentional. He was really trying to show a different side of himself, a darker
Yeah.
side of himself with this album. My question for you, Dave, is did that switch up for him work?
I think so. Yeah, this J Hope's Jack in the Box, which is not his first solo work. He had his 2018 mixtape Hope World come out, but this is what he's considering his like proper like solo debut. Jack in the Box definitely impressed me for exactly what he clearly was going for, which is his unexpectedness. But I thought this definitely brought a lot to the table, and for a BTS member who was most famous for being the lead dancer, dancing was his number one skill in the group. The fact that the dancing guy can give you something I think this interesting, and he co-wrote every song that had lyrics on this release. I was definitely quite impressed. I wasn't expecting something quite this artistic.
Yeah, I agree. Even though this was not what I was expecting at all from him or really any member of BTS, I thought that this was really interesting and pretty well done. It really blends a lot of different sounds. There's a lot of hip hop in here, but also just like heavy rock elements and like
Yeah.
arena rock elements infused in. And it has this just like dark, almost like grimy feel to it at points. And you're just like, it's pretty cool to like hear him going back and forth between English and Korean on this, and it just even the singing and the rapping all kind of makes sense on it. I was really impressed with this level of artistry.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I listened to it the second time, I was like, "Yo, this is kind of tough. This is kind of
Yeah,
mean," and I just wasn't expecting that kind of vibe. But honestly, like, I think right off the bat with the big single that has the video already, more like you
yeah,
said. I mean, you have this like really dark but still energetic rapping off the start, clear aggression in that delivery, and then like you said, when the chorus kicks in, these guitars just out of nowhere and it's like, oh wow, this is like really like bombastic, but
yeah.
still kind of has like it's like an evil side to J Hope. I thought it was really cool. Um, and there's other songs throughout the track list as well that I thought were pretty cool. So yeah, overall, I was quite impressed.
Yeah, more and it reminded me of like a grunge song, like a niche grunge song from like the '90s in a way. Like that maybe like Moby got and like flipped like a remix of at that point. It has like such cool production, but it does sound kind of hard to it. I mean, the music video doesn't go as hard as the song goes, but I mean,
Sure.
we can only ask so much of him at this point. I actually think the song before it, Pandora's Box, is like
Hmm.
also one of those songs that just really stood out to me. Um, he's rapping so fast over this and switching back and forth between English and Korean, and just like the production sounds like something from like Mad Villainy or something like that at points. I'm just like, what is this? It was just such a cool opener, and then of course you get into more, which I thought was pretty great. And then from there, what other songs stood out to you from the album?
Yeah. So after more, I thought the song right after it, "Stop," I enjoyed a lot as well. I think the drum feel from more kind of carries over there, but then the horns really stood out on this one, the way the
Hmm.
guitars stood out on more. So overall, I like that. Um, and then "What If," I thought kind of a slightly different speed after you get the interlude there. Enjoyed that. And then "Safety Zone," because like out of nowhere for the first time you get like these like background vocals like coming in towards the second half of the song there. And I agree on Pandora's Box as well.
Yeah, I think what if sampling "Shimmy Shimmy Ya" by
Yeah,
Larry Bastard. I mean, what a call just in
yeah.
general.
That takes balls, honestly, man, to pull that off.
Yeah, for real. Um, and then yeah, I think that was probably the highlight from the second half of the album. Future, I think too, was a song I enjoyed quite a bit. I think it's just like when he is able to like bring in that hip hop vibe with some and like kind of infuse those rock elements, and then like his voice just kind of really went perfectly with the production that he went with. It just really uh gave me a side of him that I didn't expect to see. And now he's going to be at Coachella, I think, in a few weeks, right?
Lollapalooza.
Lollapalooza, yeah. Sorry, Coachella
Yeah.
already happened. Lollapalooza in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, as a headliner, which was announced in advance of the hiatus announcement, a bit of foreshadowing there. But yeah, I think his dancing ability is well established. He has this and Hope World, and of course, he can do a medley of BTS hits as well. I think that'll actually be a set to tune into too, because that's kind of like a big moment in the BTS hiatus timeline we're in right now, you know? So hearing Jack in the Box, I have no reason to doubt that that set won't deliver as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be all over social media and getting a lot of attention. So I'm looking forward to that. Any last thoughts on this album, or are you ready to move on? All right, let's keep it moving then to our guy, Steve Lacy, who we've uh we've talked about a few times. We talked about his last day solo album. Um and he just dropped this new album, Gemini Rights. And,
Second,
after
second full length.
the second full length solo album, and I think after his last album, we weren't super excited because uh, I think Apollo, what was that, 21? Is that what it is?
21. Yeah.
Apollo 21 was like, okay, there's some good stuff on here. Steve Lacy kind of finding his footing. We're gonna kind of give him a pass for his first one. The lo-fi's, I don't even know if we talked about, right? Did we? No.
No.
So it's like,
Mm-mm. We talk about him
what
on
were
the
you?
internet, of course.
Yeah, but what were you really expecting going into this?
Yeah, well, I think that's right. There was a lot of hype and anticipation for that first Steve Lacy solo album, Apollo 21, because there was a lot of anticipation for Steve Lacy off the Steve Lacy's demo project, a project he recorded on an iPhone, you know, and next thing you know, he's helping Kendrick with Damn and he's working with Solange and he's a part of the internet as well, and conspicuously was a part of the internet rising in critical estimation around ego death when he joined. So like a lot of anticipation for Steve Lacy when he was still, around a teenager, like 20 years old, and that debut album was just kind of a bit half baked, a bit undercooked for the talent that was evident. So coming into the second album, I was just hoping to continue that forward momentum or restart it, I guess, you know, because I think the promise of Steve as a soloist was a bit different than his contributions to the internet, the band, because I think his music at his best to this point was a bit more up tempo, a bit more energetic, a bit more personality filled than say the internet, where Sid's vocals can be a bit softer, right, by design. So coming into this point, couldn't help but notice that the big hit off Steve Lacy's demo, Dark Red, became an even bigger hit on TikTok, went platinum for the first time this year, 5 years, almost 5 years after it come out. So one would hope that Steve had noticed that there was interest in the most well received stuff he had put out to this point. And if we calibrate a little bit from Apollo 21, we can get something cool. I did not expect this second album, Gemini Rights, to be nearly as impressive as it was. And it's just so much better than Apollo 21. I find it really, really mind blowing. I was like, wow, like this is like he's like right back on track now. That's awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think for me, what surprised me most about this album was um, the way that he infused so many different genres in such a succinct way, right? And it feels very much a true testament of his artistry and the influences that he loves and that he really um, has always tried to kind of put into his music, but he was just able to do it in such a clear way in this. And every single song sounds different, but also the album sounds very cohesive and has a very distinct feel to it. And it feels very like light and airy and summery, kind of similar to what you would think about when you think of someone born on the cusp of summer. But also, I think is super interesting. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you talked about the TikTok influence. So many of like the moments on here feel made to be just like repeated in your head in short bursts. Like for me, we came onto the pod today and I was singing one of the lyrics from Sunshine, where during the chorus for saying my ex like my name ain't Steve. It's so good, and it's just like I can just see that blowing up on social media, as like
Sure.
a meme in some way. So I just was like really pumped to see him kind of level up in the second solo album. Talk to me about the songs that stood out to you most.
Yeah, I think the lead single "Bad Habit" immediately grabbed me when I first heard it in advance of this whole album. That's the song where I was like, oh no, he noticed people like Dark Red because this is like that's the Steve Lacy banger, as it
Mhm.
were, a guitarist who makes R&B and funk music with jazz influences. That's his equivalent of a banger, and it's a good one. Uh,
Yeah.
I think Bad Habits just incredibly catchy. But overall, on that song, on many of the songs that Gemini writes, I think Steve's vocal performance is the best we've
Mhm.
ever heard from him. He's very animated, very energetic. He's just has imbued more personality into his actual songwriting and performance. And I think that does really go a long way because again, we felt a little bit lacking before, but now he feels like so much more of a fully fledged personality. And I think a big part of that is this album is super sexual, super
Yeah.
romantic, and Steve had been out as a queer man for years at this point, but I think now we're really seeing him just being open and honest in his music as well. So, and
Mhm.
I think it really all starts with Bad Habit, which is just a blast.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can't even. I think you summarized that so well. I don't even know if there's more to add with Bad Habit other than like, man, those lyrics in that chorus. Can I bite your tongue like a bad? I mean, like, how do you not get that stuck
It's a
in your head
headbanger,
anytime you listen
man.
to it?
Like
Dude,
you're
it's
banging your
so
head to
good.
this shit.
I know, but
Like
in listening to this, I think the songs that I like the most sound so timeless. Like Helmet was probably the first song in listening straight through that really like grabbed me. I think Static's okay, but not one of my favorites on the album. But
mm,
Helmet, the second track,
yeah.
this sounds almost like a Stevie Wonder track in some way. It's got those distorted guitars like playing in the background over this like percussion, and it feels like
Yeah.
something that could be from the 60s or 70s, or obviously from 2022. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I really like the way he sings on that song too. He really lets like the notes kind of hang for an
Yeah.
extra beat too. It's just like that kind of touch where it's like, man, like he's like really in his bag with the performing here. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought Helmet was awesome. The song right after that, Mercury, the horns almost giving off like a vague like mariachi vibe to me.
Yeah.
Um, really enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. That was a great flourish on Mercury. What else on here? Sunshine, obviously, like I
Yeah,
mentioned, I think is probably my second favorite track on the whole thing. And the way that him and Fouché
yeah.
go back and forth is just gorgeous. She has real like Halsey vibes in her voice. Like she
Oh,
has that like I don't know what it is. Like almost like purr to her vocals at times, and then she can like burst through and just have this angelic voice. I was really impressed, and I thought them together were a great combo. Um, any other tracks that really stood out to you?
I think we kind of nailed all of those for the most part. I thought Cody Freestyle actually was kind of interesting for like the frankness of some of the lyrics there. Again, the sexual themes coming out. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, overall, I think this is quite easily for me my favorite solo album from any of the internet members. Not that it's a competition, but this is the one that I found the most fun to revisit, I think. And Steve mixes up the genre, but like generally, like it's just the energy is there, and he really matches that with the production and the instrumentation. But he matches that energy with his performance as well, vocally. So I think it's just a real great listen, and I think Bad Habits going to come around for us at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this album might come around for me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Probably gonna give it a few more listens. But again, check out our Nostalgia Best of 2022. And Dave, let's stay in, I guess, rock. I have a couple of thoughts that I want to get to, and just in terms of like how we're defining
Mm,
rock music nowadays. But Black Midi is back, dropping Hellfire, which, if Black Midi was already a pretty like indescribable band in terms of sound and influence, they just pushed that those boundaries even further with Hellfire, because while at once it feels like the most Black Midi album ever, it also feels like they are infusing more and more genres that just make them a chameleon in a sense. And
mm.
I think it really worked for me in a lot of ways. Did you have the same experience with Hellfire?
Yeah, I'd say so. Third album in 4 years for the British now trio. And I think, yeah, the old label of like post punk, you know, band, of which they were rising around the same time as some contemporaries like Squid and Black Country New Road, this new subsect brewing across the pond in the UK and England. And yet now with Hellfire, it's like, wow, like the post punk is only part of their music now.
Hmm.
It's experimental rock, noise rock, math rock. It's all kinds of stuff that frankly I don't know how to quantify or describe half the time because like you said, they're just cramming stuff in
Yeah.
and they're having a blast. They're basically they've said as much in promo. They're like, yeah, we're just having fun and making a living basically and more power to them, you know? But yeah, I think it's they make music, and this has been the case for the whole time. I think it's even more obvious now. Like it's like they make music where it's like, for me, I can't even go down the rabbit hole with the lyrics. Like there there are threads on threads online about like
Yeah.
references to Cavalcade, their second album, and all kinds of stuff. It's like, I can't even engage with that because there's just so much sensory overload with the musical, the instruments, the production alone. I can barely listen to what he says, but I think the vocals can be kind of fun, and I think Hellfire. Uh, I think interested me most because it seemed like it's their most like positive album. It's like really it's like a movie, like a blockbuster movie. If Black Midi scored one, there's like a lot of events happening. Now, can I tell you necessarily what all these events are? No, but there were events. Things happened on Hellfire.
Yes, things definitely happen on Hellfire. Yeah, I mean, Dangerous Liaisons, a song that is like a cabaret show tuney type song, is about I'm pretty sure like getting a man for hire, or like the person who's like the main character in the song being asked to kill somebody.
Mm,
Pretty interesting stuff, and like you said, like you can go down the rabbit hole with this stuff and try to make connections. I think that's just like to me that's the secondary part of their music, because I think the sonics of it are just really interesting. Um, but man, I don't know if I ever expected to listen to an album where like I hear songs that sound like Primus, and then songs that sound like they're like made for Frank Sinatra in some sense. It just is like
mm,
how they blend this all together and make it sound even somewhat cohesive is pretty interesting. And I think even more interesting is like they recorded this in 13 days. Them and their producer, Marta Salagini, Salagni, maybe I don't know exactly how to say the last name. I apologize. Um, just like they were on tour and just like got in a studio for 13 days and just recorded all this and put it out while they were touring. Pretty interesting. And I think it definitely feels like they just like had this lightning bolt of ideas and was just like, let's just
mm.
get all this out and see what comes of it. Um, I don't think it all works, like the first two tracks, Hellfire and then Sugar Zoo, are like pretty out there. It's got this like army drum line going through Hellfire, and the next one is like supposed to be like a boxing match, like type announcer
Mm.
guy at the beginning. It's when it finally gets to the music, it's noisy and fast paced and like crazy like energy, but it's a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think everybody's gonna love this, but I definitely love that they just kind of went for this kind of shit.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's very self-indulgent. It's very busy. On the other side, though, is also very loose and free of convention,
Yeah.
and they're getting more and more singular as they go. Like I said, the post-punk umbrella barely applies anymore. So, it's weird. Like the whole time, ever since I heard Schlagenheim and like BM and all that stuff, it's like I don't know if this is like music that I necessarily like feel compelled to revisit a lot. But whenever I do hear it, I just find it interesting because of the breadth and volume of ideas that they just bring to the music, and they make it sound good, or at least it's very well made. It doesn't mean it's always sounds good, like you said. Sometimes it just can be like displeasing to the ear of some listeners, and like for me, it's like yeah, it's like sometimes it can be just noise, but hey, they're doing their thing, and I respect that.
Yeah, I think I think probably the most like displeasing song to me, and it's not even like a full song, it's more like an interlude, is Halftime, which is
Mm,
just like it's really supposed to be like I think like a midway point of the album, but like it has that like distorted like I don't know what it is like tuning of a radio, which I just really hated, and it really
mm,
kind of like took me out. But then you get into the second half of the album, which I think is pretty strong. Like the race is about to begin has that like super awesome guitar. It's like bang now now bang now now, and the drums. I mean, Morgan Simpson just went crazy on the drums on this album. They're
mm.
fucking ripping the whole time. And then you get a Dangerous Liaisons, probably one of my favorites on the album. And then you get the Defense, which might actually be like the most beautiful song on the album. You know, they're
Mm,
using a lot of like country and like
yeah.
the what is that thing called on the guitar when they the the metal thing on the finger. I can't remember what it's called, but
Hmm.
basically it makes it sound like a wah, 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 type
Oh
of thing.
yeah,
Um,
the bar, whatever it's
yeah,
called.
I always know the name. I can't think of it now, but regardless, I think this is still a pretty strong showing. Did you have any songs that you were like, oh, that one's pretty cool? I like that one more than some of the others.
Yeah, I enjoyed Welcome to Hell.
Okay.
Um, I thought actually Hellfire, the way that starts with like all those horns going on, then you get the vocals coming in. I actually kind of enjoyed that.
Hmm.
Um, I think strum bar is what we were looking for there on the guitar.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Um, Still, I thought was kind of cool, and on the race is about to begin. I did kind of enjoy that song's function as an interlude, where the announcer is like, coming up, a song like no other. It's like they're very self-aware about the music they are making, which I just appreciate. So I think for me overall, "Welcome to Hell" I thought was the most enjoyable, and to me felt like one of the more conventional songs, obviously on a curve per Black Midi standards, but um, yeah, I think overall, like if you're a fan of Black Midi, or at least have had interest in them, 3 albums in 4 years, this definitely continues that progression, and I don't see why this would turn off someone who hadn't already been turned off.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think Welcome to Hell is probably my favorite, but like I mentioned, Dangerous Liaisons I really enjoyed as well. So definitely recommend checking this out if you've enjoyed them to this point or even just interested in them. That post punk music scene. Oh, so this is what I wanted to ask you. I listened to this on a run. You know, we talk about alternative music all the time. We talk about most of the time female alternative artists, right? At this point, is this really what the alternative music is? Like this post punk like movement, and it's more and like that at this point, like Phoebe Bridgers and all them are really just more so like what rock music really
Yeah,
is. You know, it feels like there's just been a shift in terms of what we consider to be alternative.
yeah. Well, you'll notice we didn't talk about the new Interpol album this week.
Dave, you're
uh,
gonna have the Interpol stance coming for you now. You know
eh,
that.
First time in 4 years. It's all right. Um, Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think the indie rock has largely moved to the center, largely driven and carried on the backs of women, as we've talked about a lot. And this kind of as close to mainstreaming as you can do with this kind of music seems to have happened with all these other post punk bands. Now, I think it's important to note that like these are definitely fringe acts as far as like national or global scale. Like you know, look at like the scope of the rooms they would be touring in, stuff like that. So there still seems to be kind of like the rock music in name only that truly dominates, like your Imagine Dragons and your Mumford and Sons and that kind of shit.
Hmm.
But like in terms of like what the critical community seems to pay attention to, yeah, I think that's definitely right. That indie rock seems to have been, and the like more mainline indie rock we think about the last 5 years, that seems to be the center, or
Yeah,
at least the center of what people really care about.
yeah, that
And I guess we should note too that pop music has made a clear pivot, or at least down a road for now, to more throwback pop punk sounds. But that's largely been still under the umbrella of as part of pop music. You know, think of like Machine Gun Kelly and now people like Demi Lovato as well. Like you're definitely hearing rock being upstreamed as well. So it's evolving, and I'm very curious to hear how much rock we might get on the 1975 album that comes out at
mhm.
the end of the year. TBD there. But yeah, I think rock is, there's at least I think more interesting things going on than there were like 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I'm glad that we're kind of on the same page with that. We'll be talking about a lot of the music from this scene as it makes sense to, but definitely check out Black Midi. But Dave, let's talk about Lizzo. The I don't know. I don't even know really how to describe her. She's so singular in terms of the pop world. I mean, we haven't heard from Lizzo in a few years now. Obviously dropping some singles, but her last album was 2019. So, 3 years, and as she mentions right at the top here, she's kind of just been like out of the limelight for the most part since 2020, since COVID hit. And so, Special drops. I
Mm.
think expectations were high. Do you think Special met those expectations?
In short, I think it did. And there were high expectations for Special because, as you said, as Lizzo says in the beginning of the album, this is the first Lizzo album, first Lizzo project of any kind to come out since Lizzo blew up and became a mainstream pop force. Because I Love You, early 2019, comes out, and the next thing you know, Truth Hurts really blows up, a song from 2017, not a song from that album originally. You know, one of the first modern TikTok revival songs in a certain sense, I guess you could say. Um, Next thing you know, that blows up, then Good as Hell blows up, and Lizzo blows up. And now she's going to be going on an arena tour at the end of the year. Like she's a huge artist now. And if you look at the track listing for Special, you'll notice that, as most huge artists do, she has a who's who of A-list producers
Oh
working
yeah.
with her. Mark Ronson, Max Martin, Omar Fetty, Kid Harpoon, who was just all over Harry Styles' album, um, Mike Dean, Ian Kirkpatrick, the
Yep.
writer of many Dua Lipa songs.
Benny Blanco.
Yep, it's everyone basically.
Yep.
So Lizzo has got all the help she needs, and then you listen to the album, and I was actually a bit impressed with, I think, how much she manages to get out in a short runtime, under 40 minutes. And it didn't feel compromising at all, honestly. Like her first album as a pop force, but it still felt and sounded like a lot of the most appealing things about her earlier music. And yet, I think she still kind of like is living up to that higher standard now, which is coming in spite the fact that with her increased profile, she is uh, come under more online abuse and is off always at the forefront of body image discussion, whether that's positive or negative, and seems to bear a lot of cultural responsibility, I guess, on her shoulders, right? But I think
Mhm.
she largely matched that uh, pressure on this album, which I think is obviously very commendable.
Yeah, I completely agree that this lived up to expectations. I was I thought this was pretty much banger after banger on this. Even the tracks that are a little bit slower and toned down, I think really are very catchy and fun to listen to. I really was impressed with the way she's able to speak to social uh, social commentary, social causes, but also just kind of like make critiques in a way that I think still made her music pretty palatable. And she doesn't like pull her punches. You know, for someone as famous as she is, and like you mentioned, going on these arena tours, she goes right out there and says the things that she believes in and that she wants to advocate for. I mean, she named one of her songs "Everybody's Gay." She's pretty much just like, this is who I am, what I believe in, and I think the music still absolutely goes. And you mentioned how she keeps a lot of the sound that has made her popular to this point, made her so successful to this point. I think you get that in the first two tracks right away. You know, you think about something like Juice, which was probably like the first time that people like she really blew up with a song. I mean, she had Boys, I think to that point was probably the
Yeah.
second biggest track, but Juice really kind of elevated her. I think The Sign and About Damn Time infused that like disco 80s pop production that she just really thrives in, and you just kind of hear that coming like every other track from there on out, and she just she's just really great in that realm of pop music. um about Damn Time, we knew was already like, it has I think over 250 million plays on Spotify, huge TikTok trend already. But The Sign, I think, just like starts the album off on such a fun, boppy, catchy foot that
Mm.
you're kind of sucked in for whatever's left to come from there. Um, what else did you like from there? Like, what other songs?
Yeah, well, I think Lizzo's does a really good job on special with giving you her brand of pop music, which is very uh, positive and uplifting and just trying to make the listener feel good. That's her thing, you know? And I think at times lyrically she can feel a bit cheesy or corny, but on the other hand, it still kind of feels authentic. Like that's just
Mm,
who she is.
yeah,
So it's like not really a demerit. And I think often like the way she performs, obviously she comes from a bit of a hip hop background. You can hear hip hop cadence in a lot of her songs. I wouldn't call this a hip hop album at all.
mm,
I think she's really all the way into pop now. Like Doja Cat can still bring you rap and just rap her ass off. Lizzo doesn't really do that anymore. Not that I don't think she could, but that's just not the music she's doing. That being said, because she has that hip hop ability, she kind of like gives you like really conversational lyrics or singing style at
hmm
times, and it just comes across as very authentic. So I think song to song, nothing feels compromised. Nothing feels like
yeah,
I made this with A-list producers like Max Martin, even though she did make it with those people. Like it all feels and sounds like Lizzo music still. And I think that's obviously easier said than done, where there's been countless pop stars that maybe aren't actually that artistic and kind of get lost when they work
yeah,
with all these other people, right? We don't have to go
hmm
into name names, but like Lizzo clearly has a real identity. And I find that really really commendable that she was able to live up to this pressure and all these things going on, so I
yeah.
just really hats off to her for that. um
I
Honestly,
think
I was really impressed with the confidence, and obviously she's a very confident artist, right? That's her thing, and she's, like I said, I just give her so much credit for the ability to make, I think, really uplifting music for so many people. Like she's obviously a clear role model and has accrued a legion of fans for all kinds of reasons, right? But to have the confidence to do Break Up Twice, which lyrically obviously
yeah,
can appeal to a lot of people, but to have the confidence to so openly interpolate Lauren
Lauren
Hill,
Hill,
doo
yeah,
wop, boy, you better watch out. It's like, oh
yeah,
my God. Like I heard it right away. I was like, oh no, she's doing it.
yeah.
Oh fuck, she did it. I was like, that was really good. Like that was a really, really, I think, tasteful and effective use of a sample.
I completely agree, and I think "Break Up Twice" is one of the highlights of this whole album for me. And speaking to your point about how she's so authentic that like even songs that if anyone else was doing them come across as like corny, special right before it should be a song that you just listen to and you're like, man, this is lame as hell. Like, what are you talking about? But
Yeah.
you hear Lizzo sing it and you're like, man, yeah, you know what? I am special. Like, there's everybody's got something special about him. She just has this like aura about her, and this her personality is just so it just really shines through in these songs.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I really liked I Love You Bitch too. I just found that to be like a really like fun song, and it has like that like disco light feel to it. And
Yes.
that's kind of what I think really like shown through is you have a song like Break Up Twice, which is obviously you're biting Lauren Hill there, but it's a little bit more like toned down. Naked is more of like a ballad, and more like
Yes.
sensual, sexual. But like she from song to song, she makes these tone changes work, and everything feels so sticky and so well produced and so in line with her vision that you really just like buy into these changes. And even when you do go from a higher tone to a lower slower tone, it doesn't really take you out of the album, which I was really impressed by.
Mm.
If anything, I think the only moment that really took me out of the album was the last track, Coldplay, when it just has Chris Martin singing right at the beginning. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I thought,
Pass.
yeah, I was like, I don't know if this totally works. But other than that, I think those first 11 tracks are just really, really great.
Right.
What other songs stood out to you?
I think in the hands of another artist, hearing a song titled "Everybody's Gay" would be like, are you
Mm,
trying to uh, queer bait to your fans there and just kind of ride that? However, you listen to the song and it's like, honestly, no. That's just kind of a really like honest, uplifting, inclusive song. It's
yeah,
softer than some of the other more dancey, disco-y, up-tempo bangers to that point, but it still feels real to Lizzo. And I think she's probably entitled to making a song like that because, she has a huge queer fan base and
exactly.
songs like Boys are staples of drag brunches and things like
Mhm.
that. So I there was a lot of room for a song like that to not be as effective as it ended up being.
Totally. I had the same exact thought that it's like, this one could have fallen flat, but she just has that so much buy-in from that community and has been such an
Mm.
ally to that community that at this point I think she's given a little more leeway. Yeah, I mean, I really think like even songs that like you may not find yourself coming back to a lot, like "Birthday Girl." It's probably not a song I'm gonna find myself coming back to a lot, but that chorus, "It is to the birthday girl," it's like it's so fun. You're just like, oh yeah, this is great. Like upbeat, uplifting. You just gotta love Lizzo's like aura. Like she just really makes things
Mm.
fun. It feels like a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I should
Yeah.
really just enjoy her.
One last note too, you'll notice that the lead single we thought for this album, "Rumors," featuring Cardi B, is not on this track list. Lizzo
Mm,
said that basically the sentiment of those lyrics just didn't really fit the vibe for the rest of the album, so she left it off. And I was like, you know what? Takes a lot of courage again to leave a A-list feature off your album, in this case, Cardi B. But honestly, yeah, it seems like it worked out. This is a really short and sweet album that gives you so much to revisit, and
yeah.
surely will have many hits spawn from it. And you know, Lizzo leading the continuing this like dancey summer that Drake started and Beyonce will continue. So there we go.
Absolutely. Lizzo, she's a queen. We're putting on our Nostalgia Best of 2022 playlist, so follow that on Spotify. But we're gonna end music there for today and move into the TV realm, where Nathan Fielder,
Mm.
star and creator and brilliant mind behind Nathan for You, the Comedy Central hit that uh, I think still is very well beloved to this day, dropped his new show, The Rehearsal, on HBO. And this is going to be a 6 episode season. And basically, the premise of this show, kind of in line with Nathan for You, is people have a hard time sometimes speaking or addressing hard truths in their lives with people around them. And so he helps them rehearse their behaviors and rehearse the way that they want to go about having this difficult interaction by creating these insanely elaborate replicas, so that when this person finally has the interaction, they know exactly what they want to say and how they want it to go and what they want to get out of it. It's really it's a really impressive show, just because like it is so out there how like the lengths that they went to do some of these things. So this the first episode dropped. It's obviously it's Nathan Fielder, and he goes up to this person who replied to a Craigslist ad saying, "Do you have a hard truth that you're having a hard time like telling someone you care about?" First of all, the fact they just put it on Craigslist is like hilarious to me and ridiculous that they're just going off that. But he's in Brooklyn. This guy named Core wants to tell some of his trivia mates. He's part of a bar trivia team that he's very invested in, that he didn't actually get a master's degree. He only got a bachelor's degree. And he just never told them because he felt embarrassed or awkward or whatever the sentiment is. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. But Nathan goes to the extent of creating an exact replica of the bar that they're going to be having this interaction that they play trivia in. He gets a actor to meet up with this person that Core wants to talk to, and to have this lengthy interview with her in order to like learn her uh, personality and her the way she talks and the way she might respond to things. And then probably the funniest part of the whole thing is uh, Core is so invested into the trivia that Nathan finds a way to find all the answers to the trivia beforehand and then work them into these random interactions he has with Core. Oh man, this is by far the funniest moment of the whole episode, where he's walking around with Core and like, every once in a while they go up to like a lock and he's like, "Oh, if you ever need to unlock this lock, it's 1789, like when the French Revolution started." And like just drops little like clues like that for what the answers are going to be. But they walk by this police officer who has this area roped off, and the police officer goes, "Yeah, it's a it's a standoff. It's a hostage situation. A whole family is in there. Four people being held at gunpoint. Stays like this where I curse the Chinese for creating gunpowder." And like, just like the interact. I mean, me saying it does not do it justice, but just the interaction, the way that they respond to it, such an outlandish thing to say, but it's so funny. And I think the really brilliant part about Nathan For You, and what kind of comes across in the rehearsal is Nathan Fielder is a very awkward and anxious and nervous person, and he kind of plays this character and toes this line in his show uh, in such a way that not only does it create these really funny moments, but it actually also creates these really heartfelt moments and like introspective and reflective moments. So you're not just like getting this funny show. I think is it probably raises a lot of questions for people that are watching the show about their own selves and what it means to like be in these relationships and like what is actually trying to be achieved by the show. So uh Nathan For You, Nathan Fielder, just in general, I think he's a comedic genius. And the rehearsal, I can't recommend it enough. Probably my favorite thing I watched this week, and we're going to be talking about what we do in the shadows in just a second. So, high praise for the show. Please check it out. Dave, you didn't get a chance to see it. Do you plan on catching up?
People seem to like it, and I've enjoyed what I saw of Nathan For You when I've seen bits and pieces online. So yeah, it feels like he's got to get on the train.
Yeah, I think you do. So check that out on HBO. But let's switch gears to FX, or FX on Hulu, depending on how you watch it. What We Do in the Shadows is back for season 4. By far, I think our favorite comedy, like pure comedy on TV. Would you say, Dave?
Absolutely. It's just minute to minute the funniest thing I watch.
Yeah.
And FX clearly knows this as well because this show was renewed not just for season 5, but also for season 6. So we will be with our favorite vampires for at least 2 more years after the season that just began. Excellent news.
And season 3 ended in such a way where I thought there was going to be some real shakeups to the structure of season 4. Nadia goes to London to be part of the Vampire Council.
Mm,
Laszlo is staying behind with Colin Robinson, baby Colin Robinson.
mm.
Guillermo is sent abroad with Nadia, and I'm forgetting the last one's name. I'm
With
sorry.
no, with Nandor,
He's so he was supposed to go with Nandor, but
right?
Nandor throws him in a box to go
Yes,
watch Nadia. But I don't think Nadia ever lets him out of the box or
right.
something like that. I don't know.
Basically, there's a year. We skip forward a year, and everyone comes back to Staten Island
Hmm.
after being abroad. And it's actually kind of a way to have these characters have experiences and changes in their lives, but then bring the show back to what's familiar and
Yeah.
throw those characters with these changes into what we already know.
Did you see that coming, or did you think they were going to kind of lean into like the the different ways each character went at the end of season three?
No, I definitely didn't see it coming off the season three finale, but I suppose it does make sense that these characters are just better when they're all together. And it's a vibe show, it's a hangout show,
Hmm.
and it's better to hang out with everyone together for the most
Yeah,
part. So
totally.
I get it, and I'm happy with it. And there's already enough switch up. Colin Robinson has been completely changed, and who knows how long we'll be with baby. Well, now he's really like boy Colin Robinson, adolescent Colin. We don't really know how long we'll be with him, but in this form, but that in and of itself is a energy shift as well, and also makes for great humor as you expect from this creative team, where Laszlo is effectively treating him like a dog.
The way he eats and the way that Guillermo responds to watching him eat is like just absolutely hilarious. And I think it's the second episode, maybe it's the first episode, but yeah, I think these first two episodes that dropped are just the show hasn't missed a beat. It's still humming on all cylinders. I think I preferred the second episode more to the first episode. I loved the Nandor finding his wife, and he's got the genie, and go get the gold coin. They all start catching on to what the gold coin means. I just thought that all that stuff was so funny. Uh Man. But yeah, so the first episode kind of like getting reacquainted, setting the characters up for these different paths that they're on. And the second one, um like a hyper sexual episode. Nandor with all these different partners. You have Guillermo with the what's her name, the floating woman, Kristen Shaw,
Guide,
her character. Yeah, the guide.
her
Um,
slutty face.
yeah. Oh my god, that all that stuff, all like the her face and all the old timey like
Yeah,
drawings of women just be in ridiculous sexual situations was so funny. Oh man. Um, yeah. What did you like about these first two episodes? What moments stood out?
I really enjoyed like kind of revolving bit that was the house has just been falling apart. Let Laz just let the thing completely go, and like
Yeah.
we just have these repeated bits of people falling through the floor into the sewage that is like underneath the basement. I just continue to laugh at that. That one moment, I think maybe the second time it happens when Nandor falls in. He's like, "I smell a gas leak," and then immediately he's like, "Pass me a candle so I could find my way out."
Yeah. I know, so good. Oh, man.
I,
Yeah, I
I
thought
also really enjoyed the bit where we realized that the backup at the Suez Canal was due to
yeah.
Nandor killing everyone aboard the ship, thus
Yeah, that was really
causing the
great.
clog.
I also loved how Nadja just is, like, obsessed with opening a vampire, nightclub, and, like,
Yes.
the council was
Shout
like,
out Blade.
"Every new person wants to do this, it doesn't work, we're not gonna do it," and then she's like, "Fine, I'm leaving," and she goes back to Staten Island to do this exact thing. Just really, really funny. I just thought that was great. Yeah, and shout out Blade, timely too, you know? So, I
Totally.
wonder if we'll get a Mahershala like appearance in one of these in the background or something.
Maybe
That'd be great.
season 6 or 5 or 6, we might see him. I mean, if I remember right, that one cameo filled episode in season 1, I think, the Council, you had a Wesley Snipes cameo,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
they've already done it in a certain sense.
Yeah, and you
Um,
got the Taika Marvel connection there. So
right, of course. Yeah, I think there's only so much to say about the show because it knows exactly what it is and is able to tweak what it's doing. Again, as we said with what happened with Colin, but it's just really funny almost constantly, and it's just a great hang. I think Stephanie Robinson, who's a co-showrunner of the show, honestly deserves credit as one of like the greatest people working in TV these days between her contributions to this show and of course as one of the chief writers of Atlanta. I also noticed in the credits that I think it was episode two. I didn't know if notice if it was both, but Ayo Adibri or Idibiri, who we just saw on FX starring in The Bear, was actually a consulting producer on at least
Hmm.
one of these episodes. So it's a lot of talent, involved here as well as we know. And season three was just nominated for best comedy series at the Emmys, which we love to see. There's that recognition of a show that's not by any means a ratings hit, but everyone who does give it a chance seems to just agree that it's just really effing funny.
Yeah. I don't know if there's even that much more to say because the show is just humming on all cylinders, hasn't missed a step. And if you love the show, you just know that you have to watch this week to week. And if you know people that aren't watching it, tell them about it because this is a show
Yeah.
that deserves to get more recognition than it does for sure. Why don't we move forward though from what we do in the shadows onto Miss Marvel? Talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Marvel TV universe just keeps humming, dog. And Miss Marvel wrapped up its first season. Um, Kamala is now officially Miss Marvel.
Hmm.
I think that there's a lot I really liked about this season. I think what the times I really liked the show were when it was exploring the culture of this character, not only in the United States and what it meant to be a person in Jersey City, but also a person who is of it's
Pakistan.
Pakistani. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I got that right. Pakistani
Yeah.
descent. Um, and I think the times when I didn't enjoy the show, as with most Marvel shows, is when it kind of devolves into the
Mm.
Marvel CGI fest. But also, I think when it, I think when the show makes some leaps in terms of plot development that just felt like a yada yada yada.
Mm.
A critique I really agreed with that I hadn't fully formed, but Ellen Sepinwall I think said so well on Twitter was the whole like fifth and fourth and fifth episodes when she goes to Pakistan and then has this flashback to
Yes. The
her
partition.
family. That could have been its whole own season, and I feel like that would have
Yeah.
been such a rich thing to explore. But for whatever they're trying to accomplish to get her ready to be in the Marvels, they yada 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 this stuff a little bit, and
Correct.
it feels just like such a missed opportunity and something that was just so rushed in some ways. So I think there were some things to like and some things not to like. But what was your takeaway from the season?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the strengths of the show are clearly the cultural material. I think everything with the partition of India
Hmm.
was done very well. I think even the portrayal of Islam and
Yeah.
both the bad things that accompany that in terms of gender roles, but
Hmm.
also the um, bad things that other people put on it in terms of like the strict surveillance by law enforcement of these people. Um, I like seeing that there, but there's just not enough time for this series to be the Miss Marvel origin story and also the Kamala Khan backstory, which are kind of two separate things. And I enjoyed that it was largely small stakes. At the end of the day, we end the season back in Jersey City where we began. The villains, you know, I think are kind of weak and
Oh yeah.
it's a bit unclear, like this red daggers and clandestine stuff. Like it's just not that cool. And I think just being with the partition timeline itself is a lot more interesting than like what the clandestines happen to be up to and influencing in the time. It's just like I'm not really interested in that. But like just like the character moments, I think like Kamala's whole family, even if we're with them only in fits and starts, everything feels really lived in, and it feels
Hmm.
like a loving, real family, And
Yeah.
her friends, again, they're only in it in little bits, but like they feel like real people. But I think the stuff with the stuff with her powers, I think you barely get to see her be Miss Marvel until the end there, which makes sense for an origin show. But like they had to change some of the Miss Marvel powers from the comics, and I think it's all right, but like at the end of the day, I also didn't really care about this conflict with damage control. It's like
Yeah.
they're not real antagonists, and the show also isn't really equipped to like treat that kind of situation in terms of like police overstepping their bounds and potentially harming civilians. Like the show isn't equipped to actually tackle that in a thoughtful way either. So it's just kind of a big half baked thing. It's not that cool. Now the scheme with Kamal and all her friends to thwart damage control in the school there, that was fun. That was nice, and you get the reminder of those like in frame animations, illustrations on the chalkboard, the way we saw them in the premiere episode. I would have liked that kind of visual flair to have been in episodes 2 through 5 as well. It wasn't really the case, but yeah, I think it's a bit up and down, but also to me, kind of easily the third best MCU Marvel show, which makes it the best Marvel show in a year's time. It's been that long since Loki came out. Funny enough, it's so much Marvel, and I think Miss Marvel, even though it's far from perfect, it to me, I think it's the third best series.
Yeah, I think it's probably third for me as well. You know, I hesitate to say this just because there's so much drama and potential abuse going on in this realm. But just thought the CGI at times just was not great. Now, obviously, if you're tuned into any of the like comings and goings of the Marvel world, there's been some talk recently about the pressure that the CGI teams are put under by Marvel Studios and the lack of like real support and these like unrealistic deadlines and stress that people are put under. So I don't really want to use that as real critique because it sounds like there might be some issues at play beyond
Yeah, it's a
beyond that.
systemic problem, not really
Yes.
to blame the show for per se.
Yeah. But I definitely like when you finally see Kamala be Miss Marvel at the end, like I just thought her like body looked like a little strange at points and that was a little like whatever. I also felt like the show and maybe they're setting this up for more in coming seasons, but made a real misstep by making Alicia Rayner the main DODC agent and not
Arian Moayed.
Arian. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, not only do you have an Iranian American actor who, I mean,
Mm.
obviously we're talking about a Pakistani family, but like Pakistan Iran border, I think there's a lot of something to explore there. But Stewie's just so much more engaging. I called him Stewie. His name is Pete Cleary on the show.
Right. Who
But
we
yeah,
met in Spider-Man, of course.
yeah, and he's just so much more engaging on screen than Alicia Rayner, who had a very thankless part, if we're being honest. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I really enjoyed. I think probably one of the like breakthrough actresses in this for me, outside of obviously Iman Vellani, who's plays Kamala, is Yasmin Fletcher, who plays Nakia, her
Yeah.
friend who runs for Mosque Board. I felt like every time she was on screen, I just found her to be an actress I was really tuned into and watching, and she felt very convincing. It her storyline in relation to Kamala falls into the YA realm where it's like you didn't tell me about this thing and now I'm mad at you and that's what friendships are. But like I still felt like it was like fairly convincing. I thought she like acted well with what she had to work with. What did you think of um the villain? What was her name?
Yeah. So it was technically her aunt,
Yeah,
right?
that's
The
right.
one of the clandestines was
Yeah.
kind of moving through time, and get that whole reveal with how uh, Kamala's grandmother survived the partition and got out, basically got out on the train. Um,
Mhm.
and we're that antagonist kind of like boils up. I thought she fizzled out in a pretty dull way,
Agree.
and they basically just kind of dropped out. Like, okay, we have to leave Karachi. We have to get back to Jersey City to end the season.
Mhm.
And that, like you said, Dallin Seppenwall pointed about how this show needed to be 2 seasons to be at maximum effectiveness is kind of obvious. But like that's not what this show is here for. It's not here for maximum storytelling. It's here to be a prequel to the Marvels, Captain Marvel
Hmm.
2, and you get the stinger scene where you see Carol Danvers, you see Brie Larson there. It's like that's why this show exists. And that's not as fulfilling as what just normal storytelling would be. But that's kind of the constraints that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is putting on its TV
Themselves.
storytelling right now.
Yeah. Really just like a misstep. And, there's been a lot of critique about Marvel in general, and what direction is Phase Four going. I'm sure we'll get a little bit more of an idea when Comic Con happens. I think it's coming up this weekend, right?
This
If I'm
weekend, yeah, San Diego
correct.
Comic Con.
So we'll be talking about that next week. But I think this is one of those times when it feels like whatever they're trying to achieve with the Marvels maybe is actually like getting in the way of them exploring some like interesting stories, and almost like maybe not knowing what they have with things. I know I have heard that viewership was lower for this series. I
Yeah,
there's a lot of theories as to why. Some may nefarious and potentially racist, and some are just like, well, it's a newer character in the comic
right.
books and there's just less response to the character.
It also started off head to head on Disney Plus with Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
which
With
was
Kenobi.
not a fair fight for sure.
Not a fair fight. So there, I don't know what that necessarily says about the show or about the character. It'll be interesting to see how
Right.
Marvel takes it, but I really just hope that it doesn't stop them from pursuing these sorts of stories and exploring these sorts of cultural stories, because as we talked about, with almost every single Marvel show they've done, or even a lot of the recent movies, they're at their best when they get weird or they go in a direction that they've never gone in before, and they really allow creators from these spheres to explore those things. If they start kind of going back to just like this very bland kind of thing, that I think that's where this like fourth phase could really start to get in some real trouble. So
Yeah. And I think just in general, like the viewership of Miss Marvel, which is impossible to discern a true reason for. Obviously, it's many reasons, but like, you have to imagine that this Marvel fatigue feeling for viewers, it's bearing out in a certain sense where I feel like the response to Thor Love and Thunder was a lot harsher than it would have been if we hadn't been watching tons of Marvel stuff for the last years. We're coming off 2021 where there were 4 MCU movies and 4 MCU shows. And by the time 2022 is done, we'll have seen another 4 MCU movies and 4 MCU shows. It's just a lot, especially because these shows are long,
mhm.
6 hours. They're not 2 hour movies. So I I think unintended consequences in terms of how people may have treated Thor. We're
Yeah.
starting to see that. So obviously, we're curious to see how She Hulk goes come August, and we know Black Panther 2 is on the way in the fall. So more to come. But uh, I think Miss Marvel, in a sense, was a bit of an unfortunate casualty in everything that's been going on because, like I said, I think it's the third best series. It's clearly better than Hawkeye to me, clearly better than Moon Knight to me, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well. So I think, at the very least, it's effective in the sense that they nailed the casting of Kamala Khan. I thought Aman Vellani is
Yes.
really great, really a revelation. So hopefully she carries the Marvels as well because Captain Marvel 1 was a bit of a mixed bag as well. So well, we'll find out next year.
Are you just itching to get back with Carol Danvers, Dave?
Can't say I am. I actually like Brie Larson, but I don't really like her as Captain Marvel, or at least, she hasn't been put in the best position.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not super thrilled about it either, but we'll be talking about it when we get to it. Drop us your thoughts on this first season of Miss Marvel. But now we're gonna turn it over to Dave to wrap us up today to talk about The Deer King, a movie he saw this week, right?
Yeah, so I saw The Deer King in theaters last week. It was a limited release in the US from G Kids, anime film that had come out earlier in the year in Japan. Came out, I believe, in February in Japan, and then has sprinkled out throughout the world since then and got like I said, a small release in the US. And this is a anime film based on a book series, directorial debut from Masashi Ando, who is well known as the animation director for anime classics such as Spirited Away and Your Name. But this is actually his directorial debut, and many other people on the creative team for The Deer King are also Studio Ghibli veterans. So a bit of pedigree coming into this movie, and I had had it on the radar for some time. Been waiting for it to finally get a release date, and I think if you see the images or you see the trailer, there will be a bit of familiarity to it, which makes sense for people coming from the Studio Ghibli world. The animation style is quite familiar, and if you watch the movie thematically, plot wise, there is also a bit in common with such Ghibli classics as Princess Mononoke. Now, that is both a good thing and a bad thing, because I think where the Deer King falters a bit, it's because it feels a bit derivative of something that came before that is inherently greater than it. In this
Hmm.
case, Princess Mononoke, which is obviously one of the greatest anime films of all time. People know this by now. So, I think I enjoyed the film, even though like you can clearly see that it's a bit uneven because it has so many like intriguing parts to it. I mentioned the animation just engaging and makes you feel familiar with the Ghibli classics, but like you're just immediately thrown into this rich world with like heavy lore, and apart from some expository dialogue, you're just kind of thrown into it and you just kind of have to pick it up as you go. And that's all really, I think, really compelling. And in this case, we're in this faraway kingdom, and next thing you know, we're picking up on this political undercurrent. These two kingdoms, Aquifa and Zol's, kind of governs over this other kingdom, Aquifa. And then we learn that there's this mysterious disease called the Mitsuol, and that disease seems to only affect the people of Zol, the uh,
Hmm.
the conquerors, and those people think it's like the curse that the Aqua people have put on them. So there's kind of political undertones going on here, and we get introduced to this doctor character who is kind of like the champion of science, but he has to fight back against this like spiritual belief going on in the capital, and that's all like really, I think, really compelling because again, you're just kind of thrown into this world that clearly has like rich lore and like history. Like it just feels like you're in a real
Hmm.
place, and I think where the movie falters is because our lead protagonist, Van, he mysteriously doesn't get sick. He actually gets powers when he gets the disease. And the doctor is like, huh, we're going to use him to make a vaccine. That's literally what his job. And like, he's like, revolutionary because he wants to try and actually make this vaccine. Like he's kind of figures it out over time that they should use this guy's blood to make antibodies. And it's like, there's actually like a really like unintentionally prescient, like scientific, like storyline going on in the Deer King. However, I think where the movie falters a bit is we start to get into this more the conflict of the movie. I think like it just gets a bit muddled, and like it starts to get very derivative in terms of its mysticism and like treatment of nature, and like he just really starts to give you Mononoke vibes. Like the guy in both movies, they ride on deer. Um, in
Come
both
on.
movies, like they have like very similar powers. Like there's just some obvious parallels going on, and they also, of course, have the same animation style. So, and
Yeah.
I think for the Deer King too, like it's a bit of underwhelming ending. The movie kind of ends in a flat way, but there were so many appealing parts to it that I feel like the bones of something really cool in the anime world were here, and it doesn't quite come together. But I think if you're an anime fan, there's certainly things to like about this, and even just like seeing something that's this is a derivative work of Princess Mononoke, still kind of enjoyable at times. It's not all bad.
Hmm.
So I think if you're into anime, it's definitely worth a watch, but definitely fell a bit short of what I was hoping for because I feel like the marketing made it really seem like had potential to like stand out as like
Be
a
great.
really awesome. It's not quite that, but there's still things to like about it.
Well, we appreciate you getting into to see this movie, even though it was such a limited release. I'm not going to ask you how you got into this, Dave. I don't want to expose you too much.
AMC theaters.
But you do what you have to do for the content. We appreciate that. And speaking of content, what content we be talking about next week?
Sheesh, there's a lot of good stuff coming next week.
Sheesh.
Jordan Peele's third film, Nope,
Yeah.
coming out. Very
Yeah.
exciting. Also, the most expensive Netflix film to date, The Gray Man, Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Russo brothers' first movie since Endgame, is out on Netflix. Music wise, we have Jack White and Rico Nasty and the delayed Joey Badass album. And then San Diego Comic Con's happening. So there might be some important news coming out as well.
We'll be talking about it all. Hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Go to our Twitter at nostalgiapod and follow our link tree to follow us on any podcasting platform that you prefer. And give us a 5-star rating on any of those platforms, especially Spotify. We'll catch you next week.